Do you ever feel weighed down with negative thoughts running through your mind? Maybe you even feel overwhelmed or even stuck. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do something and poof, those negative thoughts would just go away? Grab a pen and paper because today I'm going to share with you a tool that will let you do just that. Did you finally realize your dream of having a family only to have your happily ever after turn into a nightmare? Do you find yourself up late at night wondering why nothing you try as a parent is working? Are you searching for adoption resources and a support team but can't find any? Hi neighbor, welcome to Anchors of Encouragement. I'm Tim Maudlin, husband, adoptive parent, Bible class teacher, and ambassador of encouragement. I too felt the joy of having a family of my own. I wish we could be like other adoptive families. I knew we were doing our best, but nothing seemed to work. I kept asking myself, why is this happening to us? Life can be tough. Storms in life are inevitable. In Anchors of Encouragement, my mission is to throw adoptive parents a lifeline and be your anchor, to offer biblical mindset support and provide stability when life gets unstable. If you're ready for real and raw talk that leads to peace beyond comprehension, so you not only survive but thrive in life's storms, this podcast is for you. Hope and healing are on the way. Hi neighbor, welcome to another episode of Anchors of Encouragement. Today I want to share with you a mindset tool that will help you get rid of those negative thoughts that unfortunately creep in our minds from time to time. Before I share that tool with you, I want to tell you a little story. For the better part of my career, I worked as an architectural illustrator. Basically what that means is I would draw pictures of buildings before they were built to show the public what the building was going to look like. Part of the process for creating those illustrations would be to begin with a model. The first part of my career, I would build a physical model and we would photograph that model from different viewpoints to establish the perspective. But as time went on, as technology improved and computers became available, I transitioned from physical models to computer models. There was one particular piece of software that I used which was so fun to use. It was so easy to use, and I want to describe that for you now. As is the case with most any application you work with, there is a way to customize your interface. In other words, you can select which tools you want to use. This particular piece of software was no different. There was a big screen that you could click on and see all the tools that were available. And simply by dragging and dropping them into position, you could customize the tools you wanted to use. What made this so really dynamic and interesting was when you didn't want to use a tool, maybe it's something you wouldn't use very often or you didn't use at all you had to do to get rid of it was to drag it out of the toolbox. And as soon as it left the boundary of the toolbox, you saw it explode. It disintegrated. And it was followed by a little sound effect. I smiled when I saw that because it made me remember the old Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons. Remember when the coyote would fall off a cliff and you would see him dropping down into the bottom of the canyon? And when he hit bottom, there'd be this little poof, little cloud. But he would always come back. He'd be all bandaged up with a broken bone or whatever. But then he would be fine within a matter of minutes chasing Roadrunner again. I don't know if the developers of this particular piece of software had that in mind, but it made me think of that. And it made me think as I was remembering how that piece of software worked, wouldn't that be a good metaphor to describe the process of eliminating negative thoughts from our minds? So with pen and paper, let me describe this for you a little bit further. And we're just going to use the acronym POOF, P-O-O-F. Write that vertically on your paper. I'm going to describe, as we go through these different letters, the process that is taking place. What I want to encourage you, as we're going to use this tool in this episode, is I want you to prepare the real estate between your ears. That's the most valuable piece of real estate you can ever own. And you need to prepare the real estate between your ears. You have power to do that. You have the power to say what is on it and what is not on this piece of real estate. By preparing this real estate, you're going to become more productive because as we go to the letter O, if you have negative thoughts running around in your head, and you're feeling overwhelmed. You cannot operate efficiently. We want to reduce that overwhelm. And we reduce that overwhelm by the next O, removing these obstacles. Well, how do you remove the obstacles, Tim? Letter F. First, you focus on them, and then you forget them. Let me illustrate that concept with another story. I want to draw your attention to the book of Philippians chapter 3. Now, I'm not going to read this chapter for you. I will read a couple, 2 or 3 verses at the end of this story, but I would encourage you to read this chapter. To summarize what's going on, the Apostle Paul is basically describing his former life in Judaism. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He studied under a very well-respected, a very well-renowned teacher, Gamaliel. He was on the fast track to be a Jew of Jews. And whatever success meant for a Jew in the first century, Paul was going to achieve that. But he decided to leave it all behind. When he became a Christian, he left that all behind. Now, it would be easy for a person who had so much going for them to live with regret, to be looking back and thinking, boy, look what I left behind. Paul could have been easily tempted to do that, but that's not what he chose to do. Listen to what he says in verse 12, beginning. Not that I have already reached the goal or am already perfect, but I make every effort to take hold of it because I also have been taken hold of by Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and reaching forward to what is ahead. I pursue as my goal the prize promised by God's heavenly call in Christ Jesus. Basically what Paul is saying here is, I could look back with regret as to what I have given up. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to forget that. Those thoughts don't belong in my head anymore. I'm going to get rid of those. And then on top of that, he replaces those thoughts with the goal he has in front of him. He's looking forward to a goal, to a prize. He focuses on that. Let's get your daily doable and make application of this concept for each one of us. I want you to think of a negative thought that you've been focusing on recently. Maybe it's something that you're even thinking of right now. Identify what that thought is. And then with pen to paper, I want you to write that thought down. If you need to pause me and write that negative thought down. Once you've written that negative thought down, I want you to look at it. Then I want you to tear up that piece of paper, crumple it, burn it, destroy it. What you've done is you've taken that thought out of your head and you destroyed it. Poof, it's gone. You might say, Tim, that sounds too easy. Well, to reinforce what you've just done, with another sheet of paper, I want you to write something positive to replace that thought with. Just like the Apostle Paul did. He forgot the things that were behind him. He looked forward and focused on the things in front of him. So focus on something positive now. Write that down. This isn't a one and done exercise because negative thoughts have a habit of coming back in or creeping back in at the most inopportune times. Something will trigger a memory or trigger a response. We find ourselves thinking those same thoughts. But when you realize that's going on, take advantage of this tool. Identify that thought, write it down, tear it up, but don't forget to replace that negative thought with something positive. Try it. This will work. That's all for this episode. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, this is Tim encouraging you to do what you can now. If this podcast has given you the courage and confidence to face storms in your life, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend about the show. Take a screenshot of this episode and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Tim Maudlin. You can also connect with me in my Facebook group, Anchors of Encouragement. So until next time, this is Tim encouraging you to do what you can now.